happened so fast here.
Had a burglary right down the street from you. Had a Bentley on the street, and they stole it last night.
Well, why is he driving a Bentley? Okay, Ron. Today's class is sponsored by Avram Maradian. Okay, we started already Friday the Maamarim Vayera Pasach Eliyahu, so we're let's see what we're up to. Yeah. Okay. Second column. Okay. Well, third line from in the second column. Okay. Now the Rebbe was explaining that what Eliyahu says, Antutapika Sasa Tikunin, why the sphere is called Tikunin. So he explains that the Seichel and the Midas are not the essence of the Neshama. They're only the way the Neshama functions through them. Unlike, by the way, Machshava, Dibur, and Maisa, thought, speech, and action are also garments, but they're much less level of garments because those are very easily interchangeable. But you can't say that the nefesh is seichel and midas. What the nefesh is like we learned, one simplistic power of life. Okay, one simplistic power of life, that like a battery. A battery is power. You put it into this thing, it works this way. You put it into this thing, it works that way. This that it says in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe asks, that the seichel midas is the nefesh, or are the nefesh. He says that's only in comparison to thought, speech, and action. But in essence, it's only the way the neshama functions. And he says, third line in the second column, Aval nefesh mitzad atzma, but the nefesh itself is a ma'alim mechinas halol, is higher than these levels of seichel and midas. What's the proof of it? Sha'as seichel v'amidas hem ekam shinuyim. Seichel and midas change. Okay, as you get older, first he says, b'midas yesh katnus v'gadlus. In midas, when you're a little kid, you like little things. You're a big kid, you like bigger things. So midas change. The nefesh itself can't change. The nefesh itself is a power of life. And one second, seichel, and the same thing with seichel. Kozman, the Gemara says, Kozman shemas kinim. The scholars, the older they get, the more mature their mind is. And he says, you can't say this is possible in the nefesh. I'm sorry, the nefesh doesn't change. In other words, like this. Then the etzem nefesh, the soul in the person, doesn't change if you get older or younger. Why is an older person weaker? That's because the body is not anymore the vessel for the power of the neshama. But it's not that the neshama changes when you're young. You have a young neshama and an old neshama and a stronger neshama. The neshama never changes. So therefore, seichel and midas, intellect and emotions, can't be the nefesh because they change. You get more mature, less mature, senile, whatever it is. It changes. Midas change. What you desire, what you love and fear, and that is much different when you're younger than when you're older.
Is it our mission to improve and elevate?
Our mission is to improve every part
nefesh,
of
our nefesh.
the nefesh. No, the nefesh is perfect. The nefesh, listen, the nefesh is a part of Hashem. Our purpose is to elevate the nefesh habamis, to elevate the animal soul, to refine ourselves, to make ourselves good character traits.
Not the nefesh elokis.
The nefesh elokis is what makes us change the nefesh habamis to do what's right.
What happens when a person passes away? You say that every year the neshama goes up. Isn't that a change every year?
No. It's just the neshama is reaching a higher level where there's a greater revelation of godliness. The nefesh doesn't change. And the nefesh doesn't get any difference in the nefesh because of the body. Because the etzem of the nefesh doesn't dress itself into the body. But the revelations, for instance, the seichel and midas of the neshama, There, that is what actually comes into the body. Umislabeshes by and dresses it. Therefore, seichel changes, midas change, because they're not the nefesh. The nefesh doesn't change. The manifestation of the nefesh, the way the nefesh functions through seichel and midas, that changes. To give you an example, like you said before, it's the muscle of the axe in the hand of the chopper. The axe is not the chopper. The chopper is functioning through the axe. The axe can get dull. You can have a sharper axe, a dull axe. But the nefesh doesn't change. Like he says, the way it is when you're young is one way you're getting from the nefesh, and when you get older is the second way. Is only the revelations of the nefesh. It's not the essence of the nefesh. When a battery comes into a flashlight and it makes the light work, or a battery goes into a toy that makes it walk or talk or whatever it is, that is not the battery itself. It's the power of the battery going into this particular vessel makes it function in a certain way.
I know it's not differentiated, so how come we have nefesh, ruach, and neshama? If nefesh is nefesh, ruach is ruach, neshama is neshama.
No, but that's what he's saying over here. When he says the nefesh doesn't change, he's basically talking about the yechida. Because seichel and midas, first the question is he talking about the nefesh habamis that gives life? Even the nefesh habamis that gives life, the nefesh itself doesn't change. Right? Okay. Until you're a tzaddik gomer that kills nefesh habamis and only lives in nefesh shalikiz, okay, everybody lives in nefesh habamis. Right? Now that nefesh habamis that gives life to the body also doesn't change. The nefesh doesn't become old and weak.
Nefesh habamis doesn't get stronger as somebody does averot?
Stronger doesn't mean nefesh habamis gets stronger. It means we allow the function of the nefesh habamis to function better.
The medium of nefesh.
If you move away the curtain, is the light shining stronger? Yes. Does the light change?
No.
The light is not changing. Whether the curtain's closed or open, the light itself is not changing. The only question is in the vessel. In the vessel, that's what the change is. When the body gets older, there's a famous Rabbeinu B'chai at the beginning of Chumash. It says, "Hatinik miyad shenoilad maschuli is yabesh." The second a child is born, it begins to dry up. Meaning, in simple English, he begins to die. Because the second you're born, you have 120 years left. A day old, you're 119 years and 364 and a quarter days. Okay? So you begin dying. You have less power left to live. That's the body. When a person becomes older and weaker, it doesn't mean the nefesh got old. It means the nefesh can't function so much in the body because the body is weaker. But the nefesh itself is above and beyond all of that. In fact, he says it clearly. Only the level of the nefesh that's in the guf changes. That means remember we learned, nefesh is action, ruach hamidas, neshama is seichel. So that part does get affected. Oh, smarter, not so smart, bigger midas, lesser midas. And he says, nevertheless, seichel and midas is not separate garments like machshava dibur and ma'isa. Shein ha'aretz v'keiches ha'malbishim mamish es ha'nefesh. Mamish conceals the nefesh. Aval ha'seichel v'amidas hein ha'aretz mi'atzmis ha'nefesh. They are revelation. In other words, normally garments cover the body. Seichel and midas don't cover the nefesh. Thought, speech, and action, which are called garments, they actually conceal the body. Because, generally speaking, a smart person could say stupid things. Okay? That doesn't mean because he's smart he'll never say something stupid. He might intentionally say something stupid. That means from the nefesh, you don't necessarily, from the speech, you don't know necessarily who the person is.
From the chokhmah of the person, you don't know who the person is?
You do. That's not thought. That's thought, speech, and action. The levushim. Seichel and midas. He says, Seichel midas ma'atzmas and vein the levushim mamish, ela tikunin. They're like they said before, the jewelry, ornaments. Chatzmutzim is takanus is nice behem kamei tikkun atachshit. Okay, when the person wears a necklace, yeah, is the necklace the person? No. But the necklace beautifies the person, enhances the person. That's what Seichel and Midah decide. And therefore, in Pasach Eliyahu, over there, Eliyahu Novi calls the Esses Spheres Asa Tikunin. Why are they called Tikunin? Why are they called Esses Spheres? He said because the Esses Spheres, Seichel and Midas, are actually the way the Neshama functions through them without any concealment. The jewelry doesn't cover the person. The garments covers the person. This is the person functioning, beautifying himself, or if it's negative seichel and midas, ruins themselves. Do seichel and midas. Okay, so he says, well, that is just like it is in a person. The same thing we'll understand l'mayla in the spiritual realms, that the 10 spheres are called tikudim, meaning chokhmah midas datzilis. And he says like this, Avo biyah briyatin asiya im b'chinas levushim mamish. Meaning like this. Right after this in Pasach Eliyahu, he says, Anto da pikas hasa tikunin, and then he says the expression levushin tikunis line. Okay, now, Atzilus, we learned already countless times, is a world of godliness. Yes, it's a world where there are 10 levels, which is a limitation. Chokhmah, Bina, that's the 7 midas. But each one is godliness, and each one is infinite. Because Atzilus comes to the word Eitzel. Okay? It's a lokus. Bria already begins Yesh Mi'ayin. Bria, by definition, the Ramban says the word bara in Lashon Kodesh. The Ramban says at the beginning of Chumash, when the Torah uses the word bara, it means yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing. The world of Bria is not a lokus anymore. It's a level of a lokus which is already concealed. Like we learned the Parsa, there's a curtain between Atzilus and Bria Kaviyachol that makes the revelation a different type of revelation. You have a light on the table, closer to the light is more light, further away from the light, it's less light. But it's the same light, a little bit less. Put a blanket, a shmata over the light, it's a completely different type of a light. Bria is the level of levushin already. And Atzilus are called tikunim. Because Atzilus is the way godliness functions in the world, is by Elokus coming into Seichel, into Midas. But it's like the ornament that doesn't cover the body. It just beautifies the body. At Bria already, the 10 spheres of Bria, and therefore he says in Pasach Eliyahu, Levushis Tikinas Laim. Because then Levush, it becomes garments, because garments cover the body. In Bria, the Seichel and the Midas are not the jewelry like Atzilus that enhances, it's a level that conceals. Got it?
But rather, usually garments, division, farther removed. Therefore, the jewelry are garments, right?
No, jewelry are not garments. Kunin are ornaments. Ornaments are not garments. Jewelry is not a garment.
The 10 spheres are jewelry.
10 spheres of Atzilus are Tachshit and Tikunin. They reveal godliness coming down in a limited form.
So Bria is Zah or Bria is...
No, Zod is Zod Natzil. Every world has Zod. The 6 Sfiras are Zod.
What's is Zah?
Zeir Ampin. You have intellect and midas, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So Zah are the 6 Sfiras. Malchus is separate, but the 6 Sfiras. It's called Zeir Ampin, Zah.
Bria starts to Malchut and Levush.
Bria starts the world of Pirud, the world of separation. And therefore, once Elokus is being concealed, not enhanced, so that the Seichel and Midas of Bria, because they're not bottled to Elokus, in other words, like this, Atzilus is Kulei Teif. Bria, says in Kabbalah, the Alter Rebbe brings it down to Tanya, Rubei Teif, Miyat Ra. Yitzira is 50-50. Asiya is Rubik Kulei Ra. But Hashem gave him by all the expressions that the Rebbe says in Tanya. Okay? So Atzilus is all Kedusha. Bria majority good, a little bad. Yitzira is 50-50. And Asiya is majority bad. That's because godliness is coming down in a more concealed form. Why is godliness coming down in a more concealed form? Because there's a blockage. There are garments that are covering it. That's what makes Bria lower than Atzilus, and Yitzira lower than Bria, and so on, because they're thicker garments. If you cover the window with one curtain and another curtain and another curtain, it gets darker.
But the garments are in the Malchut of each one, or is higher than Malchut?
No, for after Malchus comes into the garments. Meaning, Seichel and Midas function through thought, speech, and action. How do you intellect? How does intellect function in the person? You either think it, speak it, or write it. Midas, I love somebody. How does it function? Either I think about them, talk to them, about them, whatever, and action. So that's the way the nefesh functions. But the garments of thought, speech, and action, what Alter Rebbe is explaining over here, is not like the functioning of Seichel and Midas, because Seichel and Midas are the jewelry that the neshama reveals itself in. The chopper functions through the axe. But the axe is not the chopper. He just functions through it. Seichel and Midas are not the nefesh. The 10 spheres of Atzilus, Seichel and Midas, are not Hashem. They're manifestation. They're the functioning of Hashem in a way of jewelry that it doesn't conceal godliness, and therefore Atzilus is a world of Kedusha. Bligvul Chesed, Bligvul Gvura, Bligvul Tiferes, and that. It's Elokus. Once it comes into Bria, then it becomes garments that cover and conceal.
The garments of Bria are different from garments of Yitzira.
Because the garments are thicker in Yitzira, and therefore there's less Elokus revealed. When it's cold outside, that you wear a heavier garment or more layers, it keeps the cold out. Less layers doesn't keep the cold out. The more concealment there is, the less Elokus is revealed. Not because Elokus is less. Is the garments, again, the sunlight shines whether there's a curtain, what do they call it, doesn't let in the sun at all, or does. The light doesn't change.
Same today as it was yesterday.
Yeah, it doesn't change.
You're talking about between Simpson Pshuta and Simpson Philip.
No, I'm not talking about Tzimtzum Pshuta at all. I'm not talking about Tzimtzum.
Not Simpson?
Yeah, Tzimtzum, that Bria, it's not Tzimtzum Rishon. Tzimtzum Rishon is way up there before, way... What's the problem? It's as clear as mud. What?
Understand. It's got to do with us. That's okay.
What?
Now we understand it.
No, what? You always ask, what is this relevant?
Right.
Okay, because buried underneath all those blankets
It's Hashem.
is Hashem.
Obviously.
So what's our function?
Reveal it.
Take off the blankets. That's all. You do an Aveda, you add another thick blanket. You do a mitzvah, you take off the blankets. So our goal is, Hashem says, I'm dumping you neshama into a guf. Nefesh Abamis. I'm dumping you into Elam Asiyah, into this world. I'm dumping you in the time of Golus, which is about 3,000 million whatever coverings. And Hashem says, guess what? Your job is to peel off the layers and reveal Elokus. That is, by the way, what's called Mashiach.
Okay, no, I don't want to make this difficult, but what about the end is wedged into the beginning?
Yeah, because the ultimate kavana is dafke to elevate the lowest. Seif maaseh machshavet tchila. That's what we say in L'chadaydi. Then you have Chazal Noach Tchilasim v'Seifim b'Tchilasim. The edge is wedged. The end is wedged in the beginning and the end. Right? The higher the thing, the lower it falls. So the darker it is, and you transform it to light, is a greater level of light.
Meaning the garments of the Malchut of Atzia have more light in it.
Correct. And therefore the potential is greatest.
Yeah.
So what's the Aved of the Jew? Why is this important to know? I'll tell you why this is important to know very simply. We have to know that the darkness is only a facade. The evil that exists in the world is really unrealistic. Darkness is nothing. It looks powerful, it's scary, people are afraid of the dark. You know, you don't function. The Mashal Gemara says, Summa Choshev Kemes. A blind person is considered like a dead person because their life is not functioning. Right? But that's all a facade. Because all it is Elokus covered. Why did Hashem cover? Let him just keep the Elokus out there. Because the Medrash says he wanted a Dira B'Tachtainim. Hashem wanted... He's bored. He's bored.
Make it interesting.
Hashem wants that we should take... He says like this.
But evil creates a very unpleasant reality.
Evil creates an illusional reality. It's an illusional reality. No.
Okay, but it's very
Darkness is very powerful. Bring a little light into the room. The darkness is out. Goodbye.
Wow. That's why